Hello. In this demo, I will demonstrate how to deploy Submariner on Kubernetes using a new tool we've been developing called subctl. First of all, some context. Submariner is a tool that's used to provide connectivity between multiple Kubernetes clusters, grouping them into a large multi-cluster. If we take a typical setup, you might have one Kubernetes cluster on-premise and another Kubernetes cluster on a public cloud, and they're both connected to some public network. And you can use this to make services accessible from one cluster to the other, but that also involves making them available on the public network, if only as ports which listen somewhere, even if there's authentication on top of that. With Submariner, all your pods and services in all clusters become accessible to all pods in your other clusters without exposing them to the public network at all. Now in this demo, I'll show how you deploy Submariner, and this involves a couple of steps. The first one is to install the broker, and this can be on a separate cluster, which is what we'll do in the demo, or it can also live on either of the connected clusters. The broker is only storage using Kubernetes standard features, and there's no intelligence here, but we need the storage to be accessible to all the clusters which are to be connected. The next step is to deploy the Submariner engine and root agent. The engine goes into one or more gateway nodes in each cluster and ensures that the clusters are connected. And the root agent goes into all the pods and sets up the network in such a way that all the pods can connect to each other. And this works using two types of tunnels. The first is an IPsec tunnel between the clusters, and the second is VXLANs, which allow all the pods to communicate with each other. So let's get started with the demo. In this demo, I'm using our end-to-end test setup with 3 clusters. The first one is the broker in blue, and it doesn't have anything on it currently. There's nothing in the default namespace, and the rest is just the standard Kubernetes setup. Then we have the West cluster, which is running NetShoot for demonstration purposes and nothing else. And the East cluster, which is running Nginx, again for demonstration purposes and nothing else for the time being. And because the point of Kubernetes is to add connectivity where there isn't connectivity yet, let's start by demonstrating that. So I'll run a test from the West cluster to the East cluster using the NetShoot container to try to talk to Nginx. And we'll give it 10 seconds to run. And as we'd expect, it will fail. And so we'll fix that with Submariner. The first step is to install the broker, and with subctl, that's how you do it. Subctl deploy broker, tell it where the kube configuration is, and here we're telling it not to deploy a data plane. And that's it done. And nothing much has changed on the broker. There's a new namespace which is used for the data storage, but as you can see, it doesn't have any pods inside it. The second phase is to install Submariner on the connected clusters, or at least the clusters we want to connect. And so again, using subctl, you go about it this way. You tell it to join cluster 2 using some data which was exported by the previous command in a file called brokerinfo.subm. And here we're disabling that because we don't want it in this setup. And so subctl asks us for some pieces of information it needs. First is a cluster ID, the name of the cluster, and then we need to choose the gateway node. And that's it, off it goes. So it creates the CRDs, the namespace, service account role, and here it's deploying the operator itself, and so it waits for that to finish, which takes a few seconds. So we can see it here. It's creating the container. And so while it does that, I'll deploy Submariner on the east cluster, cluster 3. There, and we can watch that happening as well. On the east cluster, the container is being created. So on the west cluster, it should finish soon. There we go, it's running. And so subctl sees that, goes and finds out what the network information for the cluster is, and then it configures Submariner and tells the operator to deploy it. And the operator obliges, and you can see here we have 3 new pods. The first is the engine, and the other 2 are the root agents. And the same will happen shortly in the east cluster. There we go, it's running, and the engine and root agent are set up as well. And we can see here, subctl again went and discovered the network information, configured Submariner, and instructed the operator to start it. And so now, if we repeat the connectivity test, hopefully we'll see that Submariner has now set up connectivity between the 2 clusters. So I will repeat the command that I used earlier that failed, and this time it succeeds. And there you have it. Submariner has connected the 2 clusters, and all the services and pods are visible across the multi-cluster. Thank you for watching.